All right, everybody, here we are, chapter 4. Good news for you. I think that the book and the videos actually do a pretty good job of covering all the material. If you do the assignments as you go through the chapter, follow along with the video, you should have a firm grasp on everything, which means that this video will be short. You don't have to listen to me too much. This week, it's kind of the same stuff. I want you to do the self-text exercises in Cengage. Answer these 15 questions, put them in a Word document, and upload them to me. Then for the programming exercise, we're going to do something a little bit different. I'll get into that in a minute. First, I wanted to cover, just in case we have some new folks in here that may not understand if statements and loops. Like I said, I think the book and the video do a fairly good job. I'm just going to cover them again real quick. You can see on this side here I've got a little HTML 5-page pull-up with a couple of buttons. Here's my HTML, just a couple of buttons and a couple divs. I style it with my CSS, so that's why you got the colors, everything's centered. And what we want to focus on is the JavaScript here. So here in this input, the document's going to reach out and make whatever's in this input n. That's going to be the value of n. I'm going to use that in an if statement. So the if statement is basically, if this happens, do this. Otherwise, do something else. So in this case, if n, which is the value the user puts in here, is greater than or equal to 5, it's simply going to write in there the number is 5 or greater. If it's anything else, which is going to be lower, there's only one other option, is either higher or lower. So if it's anything else, it's going to say the number is less than 5. And if we check that, it's 5, number's 5 or greater, we put 4 in here, it's less than 5, put 3 in here, less than 5, 55, check. What about 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5? Okay, well, let's say we want to put a cap on that. We only want the user to enter, 1 through 10. So they can't enter negative numbers. I don't even know if that'll work. Let's see, -6. It's less than 5. It works. But let's just say we want to do a little more validation. So we're going to do a nested if. And that's just simply a nested if is an if statement within an if statement. So if n is greater than 10, which means it's not inclusive of 10. The user can put 10 in there and it will still work, but they can't put 11 in there. If you put greater than or equal to, it would be not 10 inclusive. So the user could only put 1 through 9 and 10 would throw this if statement. But we're just going to do, we want to try and do 1 through 10, right? So if the number is greater than 10, we will do an alert. I forgot how to do this. A number less than 10. And then else the number would be less than 10. So we'll put this statement in the else. So if it's greater than 10, it's going to send an alert. Otherwise, it's going to, if the number is 5 or less, it's going to, or 5 or more, it's going to say it's 5 or greater. Otherwise, it's going to say it's less than 5. So we have an if statement within an if statement. Let's see if this works. Save it, refresh, try 11. Of course not. I did the alert wrong, I'm sure. Do. Yeah, so that little dot I put in there was wrong. You start to forget, and everything mushes together. At any rate, so if the number's higher than that, we get the alert. If it's 10, it's greater than 5. If it's 4, it still works. So that's an if statement and a nested if statement. Next thing we're going to look at is this function. So if you notice here, I created a variable s. It's a string, or actually it's an array. I was thinking string. It's an array. And it's just an array of numbers 1 through 10. So when I click the button, it's going to first print that string. Then we get into this for loop, and this is a loop. And they explain it pretty well in the video, but here it is again. You're going to declare a variable. Now this I, you'll see very commonly everybody uses I for counters. I don't know why. You can name it anything you want. I like to stick to simple letters because they're easy to remember. But you start having several loops, and then you can reuse I, or you can make JKLMN, however you want to do it. Anyway, you're declaring a variable, and you're saying that it's 0. And that's one statement with the semicolon. The next statement says, as long as this variable is less than the length of that variable, s, and it will count the number of items in that string to get this number. And that way, so you could just put 10 because there's 10 variables in there. But this way, it can be of any length. As long as I is less than the length of the string, it's going to increment I. So it's going to start at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Because it all starts counting at 0. And every time it goes through that loop, every time that it finds that I is less than the length of the string, it's going to execute the code in here. And right here, I just had it write the index of the string. And when I push the count button, you can see it printed the string, which is this first, just print the string all the way out. And then in the loop, it's going to check, okay, is I greater than the length of this string? And it'll say no. So it's going to print the first index, or the 0 index of the string. Because this I, as it becomes 1, this becomes 1. As it becomes 2, this becomes 2. So the first time it goes through, I is 0, which is less than 10. So it's going to do this, and then it's going to add 1. Then I is 1, which is less than 10. It's going to add 1 and make it 2. So this number changes every iteration of that loop. So you get it to write out your whole string. I hope that makes sense. It may take a little time to wrap your head around it, but once you get it, it's like riding a bike. That is all for my lesson. Now back to the programming exercises we're going to do. If I can find it, let's see. I want you to create something like this. Now this is the fluid conversion that we did from the other chapter. You got your information page. You probably already have this from a week ago or whatever. Then your interface changes a little bit. You get rid of the slider, and we're going to put in these radio buttons. They don't look like radio buttons, but this is the way jQuery does it. So you got gallons and liters. You want it to display the quantity. You want to do 2 calculations here. You're going to need to use an if statement. So if you enter a quantity of 10 and gallons is selected, you hit display, it should say 10 gallons equals 2.64 liters, gallons to liters. But if we switch it to liters and hit display, it should do the calculation the other way around. 10 liters is 37.89 gallons. I'm not going to give you a whole lot of hints here, but again, if you do the stuff in the lesson, you should have this with no problem. They do ask that you do some validation, and I want to make sure that if somebody enters over 1,000 gallons, they get an alert. It's got to be less than 1,000 gallons, and 4,000 liters is what they asked for. Oh, you got 4,001. So that's that. And then another thing that they may have asked for, I can't remember. But this is what I want you to do. Loops and arrays here. Just create a table, and you can have two variables. You can make two strings, however long you want to make them. It doesn't matter to me. Well, 10 or more. This string I declared 1 through 10. I also declared a string of car names. I don't know. I use strings, text variables, something different, so you're not just working with numbers. And then the last string, the last variable, is an array with the math random. So this will be different every time you create a table, but these other two will be the same. I just wanted you to work with the math random. I wanted you to learn how to dynamically create a table. Now there should be a loop that reads the strings, or reads the arrays, and creates a table. Don't create the table and try and populate it. I want it done dynamically, just if you understand that. So the table should be created in the same loop that the strings are being read. And that is kind of it. jQuery to me, the CSS, it looks nice, pretty rounded edges and everything, but it gets kind of boring, and it's good for corporate environment stuff, I suppose. We're supposed to be boring. I don't want to forget that some of us are also learning CSS, and you can still use that even though we're using the jQuery stuff. So do something a little interesting, make it neat. Like you see, my background here is kind of cool. I guess I like it because it changes color. Do something. Doesn't have to be too fancy. Just let me understand. You know how to change the background. You know how to change, the table borders, that kind of stuff. So wrap up all your HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files, put them in a zip file, upload them in Moodle, and I will grade them. All right, I will see you next week. If you have any questions, shoot me an email.